Classic beat, classic song. We got football back week 1. Now, Lubman just came in and gave me something that will blow you away, Shasky.
I'll be the judge of that.
Wow. Lubman, you still got the sheet? I want Lubman to kind of hear. Get some run, Lubman, before we get to Tony in Oakland and Crocker.
You sure we want to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I want Lubman to get some run in here. Come grab the paper from me, and I'll let Sheer read it and explain what's going on here with Brock
I got
Purdy.
here in front of me.
All right.
So this is an interesting little tidbit that our boss, Matt Nahigian, sent us about Brock Purdy. So if Brock can throw at least 2 touchdown passes against the Steelers this weekend, Purdy will become the first quarterback in NFL history to win each of his first 6 career regular season starts and throw for at least 2 touchdown passes in those starts.
So he has to win and throw 2 touchdowns.
To accomplish this 6 wins plus the 2 touchdowns, correct.
Did that blow you away?
Not really.
But here's the thing, though.
It just seems very nuanced.
But it gets better, because if he can put up a passer rating of at least 95, he will become the first quarterback in NFL history to get 6 first career wins and 2 touchdown passes and a passer rating of 95 or higher. So we got some history on the line here this weekend, folks.
This reminds me of, real quick, Joe, the Nick Mullins graphic. You guys remember this, right?
Just going to go
The most passing yards in his first 13 starts. Nick Mullins, 3,610. That's 3rd all time. Only Andrew Luck and Patrick Mahomes did more. Come on.
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, my God.
I remember that.
Okay, you know what? So that I don't sound like a bugaboo, sure, it means everything.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Here,
I'll be skeptical of it. I'll be skeptical, and I'll tell you why I'll be skeptical. Look at some of the teams that he lit up. The Commanders, which was Chase Young's first game back.
They were a good defense, though, up until that point, but it was toward the end of the year.
Las Vegas Raiders.
Not a good defense.
Arizona Cardinals.
Well, they had given up.
Yeah.
But you still did it.
Right.
Right? You still did it, and you get credit for that. I was like, but the touchdown pass thing, look, you're going to look up like, oh, my God, Mahomes has 42 touchdowns or whatever. Let's say this weekend, they do one of those, touch pass things where, Debo comes running around.
Jet sweep. The touch pass.
Yeah, the touch pass. It's like a jet sweep, but instead you, throw it forward, and he does that twice.
Right.
Is anyone blown away? Is that on the same level of him knifing one, like he did to McCaffrey down the sideline? Those 2 touchdowns are not created equal.
They count.
I know they count the same.
I love that play on Madden, by the way. Tony in Oakland, what's happening? Touch pass.
Oh, yeah, it's cool.
Good morning.
What's up, Tony? Good morning.
I'm excited to see Purdy, and the reason why is that dude has the X factor big time. What do I mean? He has the God factor. That guy gets it. He's like Bruce Lee. You know what I mean? He becomes like the water. You know how few people can do that? Like Brady. He's just a technician out there, right?
I mean,
this guy, he gets in, and it's just unbelievable. And he's going to be great. So few people get in the zone or even know how to do it. The way you get in is you got to feel it. And if you want it, science is real. It's electromagnetism. So what they do is, all the coach has to say is, well, remember when you did this, or remember when you did that. Well, you have to get Shatsky in there, someone that has the feel, right? And then you radiate. The stuff shoots out, electro, and magnetism is what mirrors between people. And so few people know how to do this. But Brock Purdy is one of those people, and I am so looking forward. Everyone is so boring out there because, they kind of focus and then they get out. But this guy, he knows how to get into the Christ Center and mirror.
Tony, can you call us back all football season?
From
Can
Earth
you be a regular?
next time, not from Mars.
No, you are on planet Earth. She's in Oakland.
Yes.
Are you a deadhead?
How long you been watching 49er football, Tony?
Well, you know what? I must say that I haven't been watching them long. I watch whoever gets in. It does not matter the sport. Once you know a difference, you want it all the time. You know what I'm saying? It's like being in love.
It is. You're right. What do you do for a living, Tony? What do you do for a living? I want to get to know you a little bit.
I get athletes into the zone.
Ooh.
It's so easy.
What about, hold on, Tony.
Can you get the sports?
Can you get Sports Talk radio hosts into his home?
I was at a boring party up at the Claremont, and the Raiders were there. This must have been 15 years ago, and they were standing there.
Was Jamarcus
Purdy
there?
was absolutely dead. And so I turned around the guys and I said, any of you guys know the zone? And, I'm sitting there giving off the feel. And they went like this, yeah. And everyone starts moving. I know the feel. And they start dancing. The whole party got going in 5 seconds.
Wow. Tony, can I ask you?
Change the world.
Tony.
This is how you do it.
Tony, real quick, Tony.
Into the zone. As soon as they hit the field, and the whole stadium, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, yellow, green, whatever you are, your stupid hair, all those different colors, and everyone starts high-fiving, and they're the best of friends because you're feeling the Christ feel.
Tony, can I ask you, how does Shasky and I get into a zone? How can we enter that zone that you're talking about?
Oh, well, you guys, that's the reason. Wait, you're feeling it right now.
Ooh.
See, I can feel it across the phone. You were mirroring it. The reason why I listen to you guys is because you guys get in. I mean, it's so rare for people, Murph and Mac, they're so boring. They rarely get in. But you guys get in and you mirror. So this is the way anyone can get in the zone. If there's, whatever you like to do best, you have a passion for it,
Yep.
you pay attention.
Yep.
If you're in that field, and suddenly you become a fullness, you're in, and then everyone wants to be around you. It's charisma.
Oh, I love Tony. You're charismatic. Call us back soon. What a call. Tony in Oakland, folks. That's why she believes in Brock Purdy.
I just got contact high.
Hey, you know what? Eric Crocker's got to follow that
The
up.
morning roast gets in. That's our new slogan.
We get in and we get out.
Hey, Croc time, man. I don't know how you follow that up, man. Eric Crocker, former NFL.
What do you think she's doing? Real quick, what do you think she's doing right now after she hung up the call?
I don't know. But you know what? Crocker did have a great tweet about 3 weeks ago. It goes, every caller on 95.70 Gay sounds like they smoke Black and Miles. Now, what do you think about Tony there in Oakland, Croc? Tony in Oakland. I mean, come on. You don't get Tony in Oakland's on the Croc show, do you?
I don't, but I might need to. Whatever she's on, if it's Black and Miles, maybe I need to get into that so I can get into the zone like she was, man.
She was on one, man. She was on one. What a day. What a call for Tony, man. I wanted to call back. Croc, man, thanks so much for joining us, man. We love your coverage, man, everything you do over there at the the Lockdown 49ers podcast. Also work with Underdog Fantasy, a gambling website. Look, man, week one's finally here. And I've been asking callers this and asking people this. We saw college football last week with Primetime and company in Florida State. What is it about week one of the NFL season? You played the game at a high level. What is it about opening weekend of the football season that gets you going?
I think everyone is a contender week one. And I think for the fans, it's exciting. For the players, it's exciting. You've been working really hard. Training camp, long days. And I remember when I was with the Jets, man, those training camp practices, the practices weren't too bad. It was like a normal practice. But the length of the day, I mean, just especially as a rookie, waking up at 5 a.m. to lift weights, then you go eat, then you have meetings, then you have practice, then you have more meetings, then you have lunch, then you have more meetings, and then you have special teams meetings, then you have walkthroughs, and then you have, all these other things, then you have a defensive meeting at night, and then finally you get back to the room and it's time to study. And it's like, man, you don't get to sleep till 11:30, dang near midnight, then do it all over again. So those days are kind of behind these guys, and now it's just prepare for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
We're going to get to the offense in a second. Bonte's super excited about the offense, but I'm looking at this defense. Number 2 in overall yards given up last year, 6th in yards per play, number 1 in rush yards in terms of yards per play. I mean, they were outstanding. 44 sacks, a great pressure rate. Man, they really need Nick Bosa here. As someone who's played in the league and you understand that there's a business element, can they overcome missing Nick Bosa for a couple of weeks?
When I look at the 49ers defense, and I think we know how great Fred Warner is at the linebacker position, I think Greenlaw plays very well off of him. But outside of those guys, if you don't have Nick Bosa, and I know, I'm forgetting Hargraves, but there's not a whole lot of these special talented guys. I think there are a lot of guys, especially on the back end, that do their job very well. We see Hufanga, we see Gibson, we see guys like Diamador Lenore and Javarius Ward. They can do their job, but they're not these overly special, the most talented guys on the field. So when you don't have a Nick Bosa, I think it kind of makes everybody's jobs a little bit harder. You don't have the legit edge rushers off the edge. So now Hargraves and Armstead, your job is harder. Now there's more attention that's put into those guys. who's keeping the linebackers clean, right? Where Fred Warner, he's used to kind of knifing in there and making plays. You don't have that. On the back end, now guys have to cover a little bit longer when you're not the most talented guys on the back end. And, we kind of saw that with, like, Diamador Lenore getting outran by Kelly from the Chargers and on the 75-yard touchdown run. Like, not being able to catch them. They don't have, like, the fastest guys. They have guys that do their job. Well, now if Nick Bosa isn't out there, I feel like it's kind of a snowball effect that starts to trickle down to each level that makes everybody's job a little bit harder. And if they do take a tick back and you don't have that dominant guy, what does the defense then look like? And for me, I don't want to know. So I'm hoping that the 49ers get this thing signed and done right now. I was hoping, Wednesday, that's the first day that they're really, practicing. We'll hear about Nick Bosa signing and he's running on the field. But as of right now, which is 8:43 a.m. Pacific time, I have not seen any update on Nick Bosa. So it kind of scares me a little bit. And again, I don't want to know what this defense looks like without him.
It's such a great point, Crocky, and we don't know. And it was going to be a tough game against Pittsburgh with or without Nick Bosa. You do make a great point because of all the double teams and triple teams Bosa sees and how easier the game is for everybody else playing alongside Nick Bosa. But this may be the year, Crocky, that the offense may have to carry the defense because we don't know what Steve Wilkes is going to bring to the table. Before we move over to the offensive side of the ball, what do you know about Steve Wilkes? I know I asked you this before, Trady Kemp. What do you expect from more blitzes, more exotic packages? What should the fans expect from Steve Wilkes, who is going to coach from the booth, which is a difference from Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans?
Looking at his defense, and I'm curious to see exactly how it plays out with the 49ers. We've seen him do some things where he does send some blitzes, maybe more pressures. But I think ideally, especially if I'm a defensive coordinator, I want to be able to rush forward. Now, when you don't have Nick Bosa, you probably just can't do that. So you have to figure out ways to generate pressure in other ways. Maybe you have a corner come and you drop a guy off in coverage like Drake Jackson, but you kind of mix things up. So you still only have 4 guys coming, but you do it in different ways. You kind of see some of that with fire zone defenses and whatnot. The tough thing is that opens up holes kind of on the next level. So you have to really make sure that you get there right now if you're bringing the extra pressure. And that kind of opens up things like, you guys remember, Miami Dolphins, first play of the game on offense, Trent Sherfield outran the entire San Francisco 49ers defense, right, with a quick hitter. Those windows typically are there when you're trying to kind of overcompensate for not having Nick Bosa out there. So how aggressive is Wilkes going to be with his defense? I think if you don't have Bosa, you have to be more aggressive, but that definitely leaves more voids on the back end.
What about this offense? Well, Brock Purdy, Tomlin had a long 20-minute, kind of like talking to with the media, and he goes, well, they asked him about Brock Purdy. He said something to the effect of, well, it's about the playmakers and the scheme and whatnot. How do you slow down Brock Purdy?
So if you kind of look at what the Dallas Cowboys did in the playoff game, and I don't know if people are going to try to kind of steal that whole thing, what they did, but and if even guys have the scheme or the players to do it, but they ran a lot of man, tried to condense kind of the middle of the field a little bit more, have a robber there, and then just say, all right, now your quarterback is going to have to beat us by being perfect with his throws. A lot of times if you see, Brock Purdy, when he's really cooking, even if somebody blitzes, but it's a zone, Kyle Shanahan does a really good job of putting him in a good position to where, hey, there's going to be a window here. Just trust it. If you throw it in there, it's going to be a big catch-and-run opportunity. But when you're playing man coverage, you don't really have those big windows like that unless your guy just destroys the guy in man. And I don't know if that's necessarily the strength of a lot of 49ers receivers. You do have Brandon Ayuk. He's a man killer, and he can win in that way. But Kyle Shanahan, the way he calls plays to me, and again, we'll see if they adjust, it feels like it's not as much about the receiver, it's more about his scheme and how you specifically fit into the way that he sees his offense being ran. So from that standpoint, I don't know how teams are going to start to attack Brock Purdy. And I know a lot of people think they threw a lot at him last year, and teams did, but they're going to figure out what you do well, what you struggle with, how do you see the field, and where do you like to throw the ball.
What do you think he struggles with?
I think he doesn't. I don't like to talk bad about Brock.
No, I don't. We're not trying to be negative.
They'll come
we're
for you.
We're not trying to be negative.
Yeah,
I apologize. No, but you're seeing it from a defensive mind, and that's why I'm just curious because everybody's trying to knock him at every single turn, and no quarterback's perfect.
Right. I think that he he doesn't have the strongest of arms. So if I'm a team, I would try to figure out how I can tighten down coverage a little bit and make him make these tight window throws consistently. And the best way to do that is to play man. So the tough thing with man, especially with a guy like him, he is elusive. He can make plays on the move. If you are in man coverage, guys, everybody has their back turned to the quarterback. So if he starts to move around a little bit, it makes it like you have to cover a little bit harder. And I think he's kind of put that type of pressure on defenses. So I think he does that part well. But I'm just saying, as a drop back passer, what I would want, I would try to force him to consistently make tight window throws. And one thing we have seen with Brock Purdy, and I was hoping that he improved on it. A lot of people made a big stink about his, training camp and a lot of interceptions or interceptable balls. It's like, well, it's just practice. You don't know if he's just trying to fit things in there and see what he can get away with. Well, I watched him last year, and he threw a lot of interceptable passes as well. Some of them just got dropped, and that's fine. Drop them. 49ers win, great. Can you predict that teams are going to continue to drop those passes? And I would say I wouldn't count on that, right? So if he does start to throw more interceptions, then what does that look like? So in this week one, we got a guy by the name of Minkah Fitzpatrick on the other side. He's a ball hawk. He's a playmaker. I thought he was easily the 49ers pick at pick 9 in 2018, and they chose Mike McGlinchey. McGlinchey was good, not a terrible pick, but Minkah, he's a little different, all-pro safety, and he's a game changer, a difference maker, and you hope that he does not change the game in Pittsburgh this Sunday, because the way he's able to kind of decipher through what's what is, I think, is more about kind of like what Tomlin said. Kyle Shanahan versus guys like Minkah.
Right.
Like Kyle knows, okay, Minkah's here. This is what they're doing with Minkah. How can I move guys to where now this is an easier throw for Brock Purdy?
Think about Kyle Shanahan as we're talking to Eric Crocker, former NFL and Really League football corner out of Stockton, California. We love Crocker on Twitter. Follow him at Eric_Crocker on Twitter. Crocky, on paper, and I've been jacked up about this offense because I see Deebo Samuel in tip-top shape. He looks phenomenal, and we know we could do it with the ball in his hands. We talk about Yak. Brandon Ayuk. You highlighted Brandon Ayuk, who's a baller. He could beat man coverage. Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. It feels like this may be the season where the offense may have to carry the defense under Shanahan for the first time since we see Shanahan as the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers.
I remember at some point, it might have been last year, 49ers were kind of down a little bit, and I remember thinking, and I think I tweeted it out, I'm like, Kyle Shanahan is supposed to be an offensive genius, but why does he lean so much on the defense?
Right.
It's like you have all these weapons. You have Kittle, Deebo, Ayuk, McCaffrey now, but it felt like he kind of played a little bit more conservative, and he leaned more on the side of, well, I'm going to let my defense kind of win the game. If the defense kind of takes a step back and there is no Nick Bosa out there, then, you're going to have to be more assertive offensively. And I would like to see what that looks like. If you look at down the stretch, especially with Brock Purdy, and they scored a lot of points, and I think they averaged like 33 points a game with Purdy out there. So we know they can do it with him in a game where he has to go into the game thinking, okay, we might have to outscore other teams. How does he call plays then? And for me, I think that's something kind of exciting because we might see a different version of what we've seen from the Niners as opposed to this team that play a little bit more conservative and then just kind of let their defense continue to put them in positions to win.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Go ahead, Shasky.
Who's a guy we're not talking about right now that we will be talking about, good or bad, in 2 weeks' time on the Niners?
Oh, 2 weeks' time. Hopefully Javon Kinlaw. To me, he's kind of the X factor. You saw the 49ers run defense in the preseason. It was not great. Guys kind of getting blown off the ball, getting moved out of there. Kinlaw was one of them. But if the 49ers defense is going to be stout and good, the one thing that they relied on is a good rotation of guys on that D-line. And part of that is going to be Kinlaw. Look, you were the number 14 overall pick. And we are banking on you being a 3-down guy. Well, he's not that. So can you be? And I got to be careful with Kinlaw. I know he might be listening.
Hey, we don't give Smack. Trust me, we don't give Mook Dog smoke on this show. We praise Mook Dog because he's really a freak, Crocky.
Nah, bro, I'm really a freak, though.
Can you, at the very least, be a guy that can come in and do something well? Like right now, it's like we haven't seen him do anything well consistently. Like, can you, at the very least, come in and stop the run?
Right.
So I think he's the guy we might be talking about in 2 weeks. For better or for worse, what is his role in this defense, even as a reserve guy? I'm really curious to see what that looks like.
Yeah, that film in Philadelphia for the NFC title game did not look good for Kinlaw. I know Ian Williams, who we all know, man, he was not happy with Kinlaw. He actually wasn't happy with his play in the preseason as well. Speaking of which, Bosa. Let's go back to Bosa for a second. You were in the NFL. You talk about being in the NFL locker room. What goes on? What are the players thinking when the players hold out? Now, I don't know if any jet held out when you were there, but you could speak. I know you could speak on this, Crocky.
Yeah, Darrelle Revis.
Oh, wow. You were there with Revis, huh?
Yeah, so when I first got there, and I was all excited, I'm like, man, I'm here with Marty, I'm here with Revis. Like, my locker's right next to Revis. Like, this is dope. And then Revis didn't show up. And then he still wasn't there. Then he finally shows up, and I will say this. And the noise on everything is much louder on the outside than it is inside the building. So, I went through, there was a quarterback battle there. It was Geno Smith versus Mark Sanchez. Inside the building, nobody cares. Nobody talks about it. Outside, it's on every TV anytime anybody's, in the lunchroom and we're watching TV or whatnot. I think it's the same with guys that are holding out. There was no Revis there, and nobody cared. It was like, all right, we're going to do our job. We're watching film, we're preparing. And then he shows up, and it's like, hey, what's up, man? Glad things are getting, heading in the right direction. And then, boom, he got traded to Tampa Bay. But before he got traded, as far as the holdout, inside the building, everybody understands, like, the business aspect of this. So you're not going to, like, lose the respect of your teammates or anything like that.
Yeah, but how did doesn't the game plans change dramatically when you have or don't have a player of Darrelle Revis, Nick Bosa's caliber?
Oh, definitely. Now, Revis was traded in the offseason. So what the 49ers dealing with, I think, is drastically different, but the players still aren't going to hold Bosa accountable for it. They're going to hold the Parag Marate and John Lynch. Like, why aren't y'all getting this done?
What'd you make of Warner?
That Fred Warner got the sack and doing the shrug and the money. Like, the players, they're going to have each other's back 100% because they know at some point they might be in that same situation. So typically you don't hear guys speak on guys' money, especially like being upset about a guy holding out or whatever. But they definitely will welcome them back with open arms.
Yeah, that's wild right there, man. Parag, John Lynch, just get the deal done. What do you make of I sent a tweet out yesterday, Croc, where I'm like, just sign Bosa. Worry about 2024 and 2024. Like, everybody is so quick to say, well, this guy's not going to be here next year if you pay this guy, and this guy's not going to. Well, that's what I pay Parag and John Lynch for, to figure out how to keep these great. Like, I keep hearing, you can't keep Ayuk and Debo together for a long time. And I'm like, why? This is the best duo in the 49er uniform at the wide receiver spot since probably T.O. and Jerry Rice in the late 90s.
You know what, man? I look at it like someone living paycheck to paycheck. We've all been there. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, the rent is due on the first. You got to pay that rent. We'll figure out everything else outside of it. And I think that's the mindset you got to take on when it comes to Nick Bosa. Like, Nick Bosa is the rent on the first. Like, that's the priority, having a roof over your head. That phone bill or something like that, or that that Netflix bill, you worry about that later. If it gets cut off for a little bit, whatever, you'll figure out how to get it back on. But you got to make sure that the rent is due, and Nick Bosa is the rent. Got to get paid.
Got to get that promise to pay with Sprint, right? Hey, man, I'll promise to pay you next month with this phone bill. Keep me on, man. Keep me on. I use that for like 2 years straight. Hey, Croc, man, you do a great job, man. We love your work over there.
Good stuff.
Of course, the Lockdown Podcast with our boy Brian Peacock. Underdog Fantasy Gambling website. He does it all. Crocker's everywhere, man. Thanks for the insight, man. We'll be talking to you soon, man.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime. Eric Crocker, man. He's really good at what he does, man. Knows the game inside and out. You all learn. Every time we talk to him, we learn something. We learn something new